And starting discussions in Ethiopia, thousands protested on Sunday against an Ethiopian federal government order to integrate regional special forces into the police or national army. Over the last week, reports that regional special forces would be disbanded and integrated into other security structures raised concerns among Amharas. These concerns include the fear that the dissolution of the region's special forces would leave Amhara vulnerable to attacks from Tigray and Oromia, while also diminishing the autonomy of individual regions. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, on the other hand, says this move is guaranteeing stability as well as law and order in the multi-ethnic nation. Ethiopia had been gradually gaining peace after a 2-year conflict over the autonomy of the Tigray region. And now join us for this conversation, we have Simon Tesfay, the Tigrayan activist. He joins us from Washington, D.C. We also have Natnael Berhane. Yifru is a political analyst. He joins us from Alexandria in the United States of America. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so Natnael, there were reports over the weekend about this protest in Amhara. I don't know if you got a clip of what exactly is the major reason. I mean, on the other hand, we're supposed to be seeing peace in Ethiopia due to the brokered peace deal in Pretoria over the Tigray region. Now we're seeing protests in Amhara. So what exactly is the reason for these recent protests in the Amhara region?
Well, currently in the Amhara region, all roads are closed. That goes to Amhara region from the capital city. And a lot of people are aggrieved about the decision that Abiy Ahmed wants to. They feel like he wants to disarm a group of security forces that they feel protects them. What the government is saying, they say that that's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is just to integrate the special forces to, like you said, other security structures. The problem with this is, I think it's a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember his name, but a government official came by and said, the media and said that, well, it will be only the Amhara special forces that will be disarmed, not, for example, the Oromo and everybody else. Now that may have created confusion, given that nobody in the country trusts what anything Abiy Ahmed says, he or his government says about anything, because he's been deceiving the public for the last 5 years. It has no credibility whatsoever that makes people comforted that he's doing the right thing. The reason why I do believe Abiy Ahmed is doing, or his government is doing this, is because I do believe there are two reasons for this. The first one is, this is a government that cannot live without conflict because it doesn't have much to deliver. It always wants conflict. It started it with Tigray. Now it's moving on to Amhara. And next, it started it with Oromo, actually.
Yeah.
Then it went to Tigray, then it went to Amhara, then it will go to other places. And the second reason is, Abiy Ahmed is a keen observer of Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea, the North Korea of Africa, and he wants to have that kind of control over the population. The only way that he can have that kind of control over the population is if he controls all security apparatus in the country. And special forces are semi-independent from the central government, so he sees them as a threat to his ambition to have absolute control over the population. That's what he wants to do. He wants to recreate Eritrea in Ethiopia. The sign for that is, he just invited, a couple of weeks ago, an Eritrean security official visit military installations. This official is a person who's sanctioned by the United States Treasury Department for creating conflict in the region. So that gives you a signal what Abiy Ahmed wants to do. And I do believe that's the reason why.
Okay, thank you so much, Natnael. I want Simon's take on this because, on one hand, Natnael is telling us about a threat to Abiy Ahmed's ambition, and on the other hand, we're trying to see a situation where Abiy Ahmed, at this point, should be building the trust of the people. So, do you share the same view of Abiy Ahmed trying to take control of the whole region with this sort of integrational regional force that he's trying to build among the security agencies in Ethiopia?
Yeah, definitely. So the thing is, as Nathi was explaining, this is like a grand plan that he has to consolidate power, and he is realizing the fact that he has used Amhara forces to fight back Tigrayans, the Tigrayan Defense Force, through the war. And while doing this, he had to, arm hooligans, terrorists, people that have hate against humanity in general. And this armed individuals are now going to be abide by his rule of law. They have their own rule of law. They've been looting, they've been killing, they've been doing all sorts of things on their own terms. And now he's realizing that. And now he feels like the party that rules the Amhara region, which is the Amhara Prosperity Party, has no control over the special forces, which on the other hand has zero control. I mean, on the other hand, Abiy Ahmed doesn't have any control over those forces. So now he's understanding those facts, and he's trying to, kind of consolidate his power to make sure his authority is abide by the Amhara region itself. As Nati have mentioned earlier, the intention is not to disarm the Amhara forces and the Oromo forces and the Tigrayan forces and all the forces that are within the regions. Specifically to disarm the Amhara forces. If Abiy Ahmed wanted to disarm, all the special forces, as he is saying right now or propagating right now, he would have started by disarming the Oromo forces. He would have started by disarming the Afar forces to show exemplary, to be like, hey, it's not just you that's being disarmed; it's everybody. That's not the reality. He has zero intention of disarming the Oromo forces. He has zero intention of disarming the Afar special forces. This is specifically targeted on the Amhara region because he knows he can't control them. And the reason that he knows that he can't control them, these individuals have zero principle. They have zero, human character. They're animals. We've seen what they've done in Maikara. We've seen what they've done in western part of Tigray, and they're going to keep doing it. So it's more of,
So Simon, with what you said now, would you support President Abiy Ahmed's move to integrate all the regional special forces? Do you support this?
No, I do not support it by any means. I do not support it by any means. I genuinely believe all regional forces should have the ability to defend themselves, especially with what we've seen, what we've seen in the past with Tigray. I believe that every regional state should have their own forces to defend themselves. History have showed us, especially those minorities, they've been attacked on not just throughout the past 30 years, but throughout Ethiopian history. Minority groups have been marginalized, attacked, massacred. Genocide has been happening throughout Ethiopia for the thousands of years. So, in my opinion, all regional forces should be armed to defend themselves within the constitution. Another thing is the constitution by itself allows it. It specifically states that regional forces are allowed to have their own defense mechanism to defend their people and implement rule of law. But one thing we need to keep in mind is the Amhara forces that are being disarmed right now, they shouldn't be considered as the regional special forces. These are, by any measurement, they don't qualify to be regional forces. They're terrorist organizations that have killed and massacred, and they should be actually accountable for the crimes that have been committed in Tigray. One of the fears that I have is this disarmament or disintegration of the Amhara forces is going to create some sort of confusion in terms of bringing accountability. Because if the army has been disarmed and the force has been disintegrated and they don't exist, who are you going to hold accountable now? So that question comes along as well. So I do not support the Abiy's move to disarm and dismantle the Amhara forces. In addition to that, though, my primary concern is the force themselves. They should be disarmed, though. Not in a way Abiy Ahmed wants it to be disarmed, but in an accountability way. An external mediator should come in and put these forces accountable, and justice needs to be served as well.
Okay. All right, thank you, Simon. Now, Natnael, looking at the relationship between the Amhara forces and, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, you said earlier, and I think two of you gave those positions, that they were actually instrumental and looking at the crisis going on in Tigray and capturing some places that were considered Tigrayan region. Now, with this crisis going on and this reintegration of the Amhara special forces, what do you think would be the implication? And do you think that the Amhara region is also not happy with the fact that Tigrayan leaders have also been involved in the policy or decision making in Ethiopia due to the brokered peace deal in Pretoria?
I think we need to take a little bit of nuanced look about this. The special forces were created a few decades ago, first in the Somali region. Their sole purpose was to fight al-Shabaab. Then other regions started to have them. Some of them expanded their police force into special forces. So what Abiy Ahmed and the Prosperity Party government did in Amhara region is just as an appendage of the special forces, it created a Janjaweed-like militia called Fano that is absolutely out of control and has been committing a lot of crimes in Tigray, and it became eventually a threat to the government itself. So not all members of special forces are bad and need to be condemned and need to be prosecuted. Of course, the members of Amhara special forces have committed a lot of crimes when they were dispatched into Tigray, and those need to be prosecuted. But what Abiy Ahmed is trying to do is to have these forces, including the Fano, like I said, it's a Janjaweed type of militia group. He wanted to use them as a warning stick against anybody who rise up against him. Now, when he felt that they are a threat for its power, not only for him, but for Amhara region officials who actually subscribe to him, who are very, very much submissive to him, when they felt that they are a threat to their own power, they wanted to eliminate them. I'm sorry. So the Amhara region has a right to have special forces. Here in the United States, we call them National Guard. They are called for national emergencies or natural disasters ensue. They're called to assist the public. But it's a different story in Ethiopia. In any case, they do have a right. The Amhara region, just like other regions, does have a right to have special forces. What Abiy Ahmed could have done is to take out this Janjaweed-like militia Fano and those who committed crime in the special forces and prosecute them. Not only them, every government officials, members of his party, just as it was agreed in Pretoria, to bring them to justice for propagating genocide on the people of Tigray and driving the country over a peace. He could have done that. Instead, like I said, he just couldn't live without having conflict because he can't have a peacetime. He doesn't have anything to deliver. He started this in addition to his fear that these are a threat to his power. In your question about the Amhara political interests partaking in the prosperity government, it's very unfortunate that genuine interests of the Amhara people is not partaking. It does not any part in his government. Usually, he has people who are submissive to his will. They end up having interests that actually hurt the Amhara people, creating conflict with its neighbors, with the people of Tigray that has, to the large part, similar language, similar culture, religion, and cultural genetic heritage. So these people are with him. Those who have genuine interest of the Amhara people, those who want the Amhara people to live with its neighbors in peace and to continue the progress that the Amhara people have done in the 27 years with all its faults of the government of yesterday. The Amhara people have made a lot of progress in terms of education and economy. Now that has stalled. Those people who want the Amharas who want that to continue are not part of Abiy Ahmed government, or he does not have any interest. He's more interested with elites who inflate conflicts. Conflicts want to live in the yesteryear of the 19th and 18th centuries, very reactionary, with very, very reactionary and backward politics. He's propping those because he just wants to have conflict every time to create crisis. Then he wants to come and resolve it and become a hero. That way he can prolong his power, and that's the problem with the government. But the genuine people who have interest in the well-being of Amhara, Tigray, are not partaking any part. They are not taking any part in his government.
All right. Now, Simon, we're still looking at the political landscape. I mean, earlier on, 7 years ago, we saw this alliance between Amhara and Oromia. But recently, we've seen a visit by Tigrayan new leaders to Oromia. So are we looking at a possible alliance between Tigray leaders and Oromia? What should we expect from this?
So, yes, one thing we need to keep in mind is there's a difference between alliance between two political parties and an alliance between two given societies or populations. The relationship between the Oromo people and the Tigrayan people have existed pre the Pretoria Agreement. The Oromos that are residing throughout the country have been alongside Tigrayans throughout the war. So I'm not concerned in terms of there will be another Oromara like relationship between the Tigrayan and the Oromo parties, because in my opinion that would be a very adverse. It would have an adverse effect in the reality. But the big thing that we need to look at is to see the bigger picture and notice what has been happening for the past years since Abiy Ahmed have come to power. The first thing Abiy Ahmed did when he came to power was disarming regional forces. He disarmed the Somalia forces and took control or appointed puppet governments where they listened to whatever Abiy said. He did the same thing. He tried to do the same thing in Tigray, failed. He did some sorts of coup d'etat and internal coup d'etat in an Amhara region where he killed the special force leaders, killed some of the leaders, and appointed puppet leadership where they take orders straight from him. And now what's going on is when the war started, he had to arm back the same militias and forces that he disarmed. So now he armed the Amharas. And now he's realizing that he can't control those forces. So he has to disarm them. But going back to the political picture and talking about alliances, I have zero doubt in terms of relationships that are being created between political leaders, because what matters is the actual base that is aligned. Tigrayans have always fought for the equality of all ethnic groups, including the Amharas. And everybody knows this. The Oromos know this. The Amharas know this. If you go to South, everybody knows this. Tigrayans have been fighting for equality. So I have zero fear in terms of the Oromos and the Tigrayans aligning, to go back to when the Oromos and the Amharas aligned and attacked Tigray. That was more of a political alliance rather than people-to-people alliance. And what we want to see is people-to-people alliance, which we've been seeing, especially between the Oromos and the Tigrayans.
Now, still staying with you, Simon, coming back to the issues of the people, I mean, aside from the protests being about this integration of the regional forces into the main capital force, there have also been reports that there's been restrictions on travel for Amhara residents to Addis Ababa. Now, how true are these situations in Amhara?
So actually, that's very sad to see, in my opinion. Yes, there has been restrictions implemented throughout Amhara in terms of traveling, especially in Gondar. Now, when I say especially, the latest one what we've heard was today the Gondar city administration has imposed sanctions. So when I say sanctions, more of a state of emergency. They've restricted movement, they've restricted communications, they've restricted gatherings, which is alarming for me. But the big take here is everybody knows what the problem is. Everybody in Ethiopia knows what the problem is. We all know that the government, the federal and the regional government, is causing this havoc. And this is why the reason Ethiopia in general is in chaos is because Abiy Ahmed is trying to create some sort of leadership where he is the only person that governs the whole country. We've been saying this since day one. And the same thing that is happening in Amhara has happened in Somalia, has happened in Tigray. When the Tigrayans were screaming for help, saying that what's happening right now is not correct, the rest of the region, which is the Amhara region, was denying it, refusing it. Now, the tables have been reversed, and the same thing that was happening in Tigray, to some extent, is happening in Amhara. We could all fight together and we could have ended this. But the precedence that was set prior says otherwise. The hate is there. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, I really do not see a solution to this.
Okay. Now, I want Natnael to quickly give his take on all of this, because we've seen protests, and what we're seeing going on in Amhara is not a very funny sight. So how do you see this playing out? Do you actually think that the Amhara forces will actually give in and comply with the government restructuring orders, or do you see a continuous fight back from the Amhara special forces?
I do see that eventually Abiy Ahmed will a little bit back down, because the Amhara people, it's the second largest region in the country, not only with the population, but with land mass. There is a cultural, linguistic, and political influence that is very substantial within his government of the Amhara quote unquote representation. Do they represent Amhara interests or not is different. Therefore, because of that, he probably will be backing down. He has this behavior of putting his finger into something that he really didn't have to. Just a couple of months ago, he supported a schism in Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It is something that is very much a no-no in Ethiopia. You just don't interfere in independence of religious institutions to the extent that Abiy Ahmed did. And that seemed to cost him a lot in terms of very little constituency that he had left. So I think he would realize that, and he will back down. The problem is backing down is not enough. The solution for this is there was a window that was created in Pretoria, an opportunity for him to backpedal and reform a lot of things that he could have reformed. He has sacrificed a lot of people unnecessarily, including assassinations, unexplained assassinations throughout the last 5 years. The only thing that he's being asked right now is to bring people, even within his administration, that have committed and were accessories to commit genocide on the Ethiopian people. In Ethiopia, since World War II, the world has never seen that a government throwing its own citizens in concentration camps, in internment camps. That happened in Ethiopia. And there are people who are accessory to it in his administration. he could have he could have give a priority right now instead of picking a fight here and there. He could have given priority to that kind of delivering justice, at least attempting to deliver
So,
justice.
in other words, Natnael, what you're saying is that people are still demanding justice for the death of people within this Prime Minister's Abiy Ahmed's administration.
Try to have reconstruction.
All right.
Compensate the people of Tigray for a lot of things that they have left. I mean, we can't bring the lives back, but he could have helped in the reconstruction. And for God's sake, stop foreign involvement, especially Eritrea. That way, he could have gotten what he has lost. But unless he is not doing that and goes here and there and pick and fight, probably he's going to his end days, I'm afraid.
We'll definitely have our eyes fixed on this development and see how things pan out in Ethiopia. Thank you so much, Simon and Natnael, for joining us in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.